Or you
Oh,
started it? Okay.
okay.
Right.
Yep, I started.
All right. I want to call the meeting of the North Carolina State Bar Council to order for January 21st, 2022. Appreciate all of you, all the hard work you've put in this week to the meetings, and I think we've had a pretty good week. I think the Zoom has worked pretty well. I think everything's worked the way we would hope it to do. I would like to remind everybody that we are live streaming, and this live stream is recorded. So it is going to be in the archives for perpetuity, to use an old law school phrase. Please don't say anything that you wouldn't want to be out into the historical records of the state bar. I do want to, as a part of just personal privilege, I put in the chat, if you would take a look at the chat box, at the very top, something very near and dear to my heart is the North Carolina High School Mock Trial Competition. It is an annual thing. There are regionals that are going to occur February the 5th. This year it's a Saturday. It is virtual again. They really need some help. You can do it from the comfort of your home because it's virtual. It's essentially, they need some presiding judges and scoring jurors. It is a great program. It really enhances what we are supposed to do as lawyers, and that is contribute to young people in the community and get them a better understanding of civic duty. There is a link there that you can go to. You can pick, because it's virtual, you can go to any of the regionals. Rowan County has had a regional for the last 4 years. I'm participating in our regional. Usually one or two teams from each region go to the state finals, which are conducted usually in person at Campbell University School of Law. But virtually, I don't know whether they'll have to go virtual this year or not, but they may. But it really works good. I would just encourage you to consider doing that as a way of giving back to our communities and to our state. So I'll leave that there. Also in the chat box, put in the chat box, I left you my cell phone number. If you have any concerns, questions, or ideas as we go through the year, I welcome you to text me or call me. But please understand that those might be, any text messages are possibly part of the public records for the state bar if it concerns state bar business. So anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know that and ask you to take a look at that as you oh, okay. Dorothy says that I have to repost that. Okay, and I will in a few minutes. I thought it would stay in there, but anyway, I want to at this point in time read the State Ethics Act and another requirement of the state with regards to the State Ethics Commission. Members of this council are hereby advised of their duty under the State Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before the council with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict. Additionally, the State Ethics Commission has identified that all lawyer members of the State Bar Council have potential conflicts of interest because their service involves the regulation of the legal profession of which they are members. The conflict must be recorded in the minutes of this body, and it is the duty to remind all lawyer members of the council of this potential conflict, of their obligation to be mindful of this potential conflict, and of their obligation to refrain from participating in any matter in which they have an actual conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict of interest. So now we're in good graces with the State Ethics Commission, And we'll move forward, and I'll recognize Todd Brown, our Vice President, for the invocation. Todd.
Thank you, Darren. Let us pray. We come today thankful for the opportunity to gather with friends and colleagues, old and new, to continue discharging the State Bar's mission of protecting the public. May this virtual experience of teamwork and shared bonds strengthen and deepen our commitment to our mission. We ask for your blessing and guidance as we address matters coming before us today, that you cast a spirit of collaboration and respect over us as we strive for excellence, that you grant us the wisdom, good judgment, and patience to complete our work in a manner pleasing in your sight. Lastly, we are blessed and grateful for our ability to meet, deliberate, and decide virtually. But we pray that we are blessed with the benefits of enhanced collegiality and camaraderie at in-person meetings in April. Still honored to be good stewards and faithful servants of the State Bar. We ask for these blessings. Let us all say amen.
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 Thank you, Todd. We have in our midst brand new bar counselors. We have 12 of those this year. We had a lot of turnover because of retirement, and we also had some counselors who ran against prior counselors. I want to identify each of you. As I call your name, if you'll unmute and just let us know where you practice or where your office is located and what kind of law you practice very quickly. We'll do that as quickly as we can for those of you who weren't able to make the new counselor reception. Michael Peters.
Good morning. I'm Michael Peters in Tarboro. I'm the county attorney for Edgecombe County, and I'm in District 8, which is Edgecombe, Nash, and Wilson counties.
Thank you, Michael. Mark Herring.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Herring. I'm an assistant district attorney in Lenoir County, Kinston. I represent the 9th district, which is Wayne, Lenoir, and Greene. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Ashley Campbell.
Good morning. I'm Ashley Campbell. I am a member of the 10th, which is Wake County. I practice in 2 capacities. I'm a professor at Campbell Law School, where I run the Blanchard Community Law Clinic, and I'm also in private practice, where I do commercial and real estate litigation.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Kimberly Moore. Is Kimberly here? Okay, we'll go back to her and check after we. Meredith Nicholson.
Hi, good morning. My name is Meredith Nicholson. I have a private practice in Durham, North Carolina, where my partner and I concentrate on family law, adoption and surrogacy, and LGBTQ issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Meredith. Welcome. Thomas Langdon.
Good morning. I'm a district court judge in Judicial District 17B, represent the Bar Council for District 23. For 18 years, I was an assistant district attorney in those counties, which includes Mount Airy, Pilot Mountain, Dobson, Danbury, King, Elkin. I practiced, of course, in the criminal area. Now a lot of family law, a little bit of everything, but really looking forward to service over the next 3 years. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Judge. Manisha Patel.
Hi, everyone. My apologies. I'm on secured leave at the airport, but I thought I would log on. So I just want to say a quick hello. I'm representing 24th Judicial District, and that's Greensboro, most of Guilford County. I'm a family law practitioner and in Greensboro, and have my own law firm and have been practicing there for a little over 10 years.
Okay. Thank you and welcome. George Lorm.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is George Lauren. I'm proud to represent the 26th District, which is, as Mr. Jordan mentioned earlier, the great state of Mecklenburg. I was an assistant district attorney here for 2 years and have been in private practice since 1982 and focus on criminal defense work. And we do quite a bit of litigation dealing with officer certifications, BLET certifications and the like. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Mr. Lauren. Thank you. Tamika Horton, Shafiq Horton, I'm sorry.
No worries. Tamika Shafiq Horton. I'm also from Mecklenburg County. I'm a former prosecutor. I've spent the last 20 years in-house at Duke Energy, and just in the last year, have been in a strategy role at Duke. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Greg Jones.
Good morning. Greg Jones here, representing District 27, which is Rowan County. Practice here in Salisbury. Known Mr. Darren Jordan for quite some time. We're from the same county. Mainly practicing criminal defense law here with the law firm of Shelby, Pethel, and Hudson. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Mary Oxley.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Oxley, and I'm representing District 41, which is Rutherford and McDowell counties. I practice in Forest City with a small practice with one other attorney. We do a little bit of everything, primarily estate probate and special proceedings, contracts, some real estate. We've both gotten out of doing criminal and family law, but other than that, we do a good bit of everything, and looking forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, Mary. Zealand McKinney. Is Zealand on?
I haven't seen Zealand.
Okay. All right. What about Kimberly Moore? I want to go back to her. Has she joined us?
No, I haven't seen her either.
Okay. All right. All right. Very good. Well, if they join us, if you'll let me know, Peter, we'll go back and check on them. At this point in time, I need to make acknowledgement of some correspondence that we've received from the State Ethics Commission with regards to receipt of statements of economic interest from counselors. We've received the correspondence from North Carolina State Ethics Commission relative to the statements of economic interest filed with the body by the following counselors: Michael Peters, Mark Herring, Darren Jordan, Kimberly Moore, Meredith Nicholson, Thomas Langan, George Lorm, Tamika Shafiq Horton, Thomas Jones or Greg Jones, Mary Oxley, and Zealand McKinney. And that's just for the records and the minutes to notify that we have received those, and you are cautioned again that you do have a potential conflict of interest based on being an attorney and making rulings with regards to the practice of law in North Carolina. At this point in time, I'd like to recognize special guest from the North Carolina Bar Association. We have with us John Heil. We also have, who is the president of the North Carolina Bar Association. We also have Clayton Moore, who's the president-elect. And I believe Jason Hensley is also here, the executive director of the Bar Association. And I would like to recognize John Heil for a report from the North Carolina Bar Association.
Thank you, Darren. Good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you this morning, and thank you for your work. Thank you, Darren and Alice, for joining us yesterday for our winter board meeting. We know you're having a busy week, and we appreciate your taking the time out to update us. Let me just quickly tell you a few things that we have going on at the Bar Association. I know you've got a lot of work to do. Our foundation side of the house, the North Carolina Bar Foundation, continues to be very active and productive during the pandemic, and continuing to provide the services to the people of North Carolina that it is their mission to do. We have undertaken the Housing Stability Program, which I believe I mentioned to you at the last meeting. It is a program where we're working with the Pro Bono Resource Center to set up sort of intermediaries to utilize federal pandemic funds in addressing landlord-tenant disputes and evictions. That program is up and running and doing well. We are looking to expand our Wills for Heroes program, whereby we have volunteers go do estate planning documents, simple wills, and so forth for first responders. And we are exploring expanding that program to some other public service positions, especially in low-income areas. I think that's an exciting development, and looking forward to reporting more on that. We have our annual For All Service Day on March 4th. That's a Friday. That's a program that we've had for about 15 years now. 1 day of service, whereby we used to put hundreds of attorneys into television station call centers across the state. Now we have converted in the last 2 years to doing it online, but we will generally take anywhere between 8,000 and 10,000 calls from the public during the day, with lawyers, volunteer lawyers, giving legal information to those people being able to call in. It's been a really great program over the years, started by Janet Ward Black, as I said, probably around 2008. So we're looking forward to that. Our foundation task force continues to do good work, growing out of the report that we published last year on the association's history with systemic racism. They have already taken concrete steps to address certain issues relating to some of our justice funds, recognizing donors. We're very proud of the work that they are doing. On our association side, we, as with you, we continue to address the pandemic and the in-person issues versus remote. We have tried to be flexible and adaptive as we've gone through the pandemic. And as with everyone else, we hope to get back live and in person for some events, but we'll not do that until, of course, it's safe to do so. We did have our annual law student reception last night virtually. Historically, that's been done in our gallery at the Bar Center. I know a number of you have participated. I would thank anyone who was able to join us last night. I think we had a really good turnout. This is an opportunity for our law student members to meet some members of the profession. I thought it was done very well. We got into breakout rooms with them and were able to have some one-on-one conversations with them. The association's task forces, both growing out of our report last year and our otherwise established diversity, equity, and inclusion task force, continue their good work, as well, looking to address the issues that we identified in the report and generally make our organization stronger on that front. So in brief, that is a few of the things we have going on. Appreciate being able to be with you this morning and report on those things. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Hey, John, we really appreciate the relationship we continue to have with the Bar Association, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Does anyone have any questions of John before he concludes? All right, seeing none, we thank you guys. Thank you to Clayton and also Jason for joining us. And you guys are welcome to continue to watch the festivities, or you can go and make some money, however you choose. So thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Yes, sir. I would now like to recognize Cameron Lee with regards to the tender of a surrender of license of Joshua Michael Reed. Cameron.
Good morning, y'all. Thank you, Darren. Y'all have in your materials the affidavit of the surrender of the law license of Joshua Michael Reed. And Mr. Reed acknowledges that he pled guilty to the federal felony offense of attempted coercion or enticement of a minor. He did that in the Western District of North Carolina. I've reviewed the affidavit. I find it to be in proper order, and I would ask that the council accept the affidavit and enter an order disbarring Mr. Reed and also taxing him with the associated costs and administrative fees.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the tender of surrender of license of Josh and Michael Reed?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Nana Sante Smith.
Do I have any discussion? Anybody have any questions of Cameron? All right, having none, we will vote pursuant to our poll that Peter will put up. All in favor vote yes. All opposed vote no.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. All right, I would thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
I would now like to recognize Savannah Perry with regards to this tender of surrender of license of Tiffany Dawn Russell. Savannah?
Good morning. Also in your materials is the affidavit of surrender of law license of Tiffany Dawn Russell. Ms. Russell acknowledges that she participated in a conspiracy to defraud financial institutions. I reviewed the affidavit and find it to be in proper order. I ask that the council accept the affidavit and enter an order disbarring Ms. Russell and taxing her with the costs and fees.
Thank you. Do I first have a motion to accept the recommendation to tender of the surrender of license of Tiffany Dawn Russell? Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. President.
A second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion with regards to that or any questions of Savannah? If none, if you'll post a poll, Peter.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, Savannah.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend. Yep. The next order of business will be to receive reports from certain agencies within the state bar. I'd like to call upon Mary Irvine from Ielts to give a report of the Ielts board.
Good morning. Thank you, President Jordan. A written report from Ielts is in your materials for today, but I guess I'll take just a few minutes to share some updates with all of you about the work of the Ielts program over the past few months. We are in the final days of collecting 2021 income from financial institutions that remit interest earned on lawyers' trust accounts as we receive that income in the month after it is earned. Average monthly income to date has been consistent with 2019, which was Ielts' historical peak of revenue from Ielts accounts. We did see a slight dip in 2020, so this is positive news for us, and it certainly added to the ability for the Ielts board to increase grant making, which I'll come back to in just a second. Total current income from attorneys' Ielts accounts in 2021 exceeds $4.9 million. As you might note, if you dig into the details of the stats that we provided on the third page of our report, income from Ielts accounts historically since the program's inception has now passed $100 million. You might have seen the news projecting interest rate increases from the Federal Reserve in 2022. Our experience tells us that it does take some time for those increases to impact the income that we are receiving from our banking partners. Both Ielts' prime partners and benchmark banks, those institutions that are paying above average interest rates to support the program, are listed in the report. If you bank with one of these institutions, I hope that you'll take some time to thank them the next time you see them for their support of Ielts, which allows us to send more funds back out the door to support civil legal aid and other administration of justice efforts. In late December, the Ielts Board of Trustees met to approve 2022 grants. Approved awards totaled more than $4.25 million. More than 80% of those funds, 3.5 million, support direct civil legal representation of individuals who otherwise would not be able to afford an attorney. An additional 491,000 was approved to support volunteer lawyer programs in their pro bono efforts. And then 247,500 was granted to other projects that work to improve the administration of justice. This represents a 40% increase over 2021 regular grant levels. The board was pleased to receive and consider some applications this year from a number of entities that have not previously applied and have not previously received IOLTA support. A full list of IOLTA grantees is available on our website. And then lastly, I would just direct you to the two reports that were included within our report. Our most recent annual report, which was for 2020, and then the report that we send to the General Assembly each year regarding the funds administered by IOLTA on behalf of the State Bar under the Domestic Violence Victim Assistance Act. In particular, in that DV report, there is lots of stats, but also a really incredible story that I think helps to convey the real importance of providing civil legal aid to those who are facing domestic violence. Happy to answer any questions if folks have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any questions of Mary? It was pointed out in the Bar Association meeting yesterday after her presentation that she is probably the only one who is smiling at the increase in interest rates that are going to be coming before long. So, but thank you for your work, Mary. That is very important work, and I think that is one of the good things we do at the State Bar. So,
thank you.
I want to recognize Robin Morades of our super awesome lap board and lap program here at the State Bar for her report of the going on at the lap.
Thanks, Darren. Good morning, everybody. I believe that the last time that we gave a report was actually in January of 2020, the last in-person meeting before the full-on COVID lockdown. So I want to give a retrospective report. So looking at the big picture for the 2-year period ranging from January 1st, 2020 until December 31st, 2021, LAP opened 304 files. During that same 2-year period, we gave 100 live or live webinar CLE presentations. We now offer many of our CLE presentations by video on demand on our website. So it's becoming harder to track who's using which videos. Because of that, we know our CLE impact is actually bigger than the 100 programs and the numbers that we're reporting here. After a well-known and well-liked Raleigh lawyer committed suicide in 2020, we created a suicide prevention CLE video at Judge Ridgway's request. It's available on our website, and we know that it's already in use. A CLE sponsor down in Moore County emailed me about it just last week. The Lawyer Assistance Program annually hosts an annual minority outreach conference for African American attorneys. Usually between 400 and 600 attorneys attend. We actually held the event in 2020 just under the wire before COVID was a household word. We canceled the event in 2021, and because of the Omicron variant, we've just rescheduled the 2022 event from February 18th to June 3rd. In both 2020 and 2021, June marked a low point for COVID cases, so that's our hope for this year as well. And finally, we recently launched a podcast. We had a professional podcast producer help us with it. We have about 11 episodes so far, and new episodes drop on Fridays. We're actually already having both a national and an international reach. It's kind of interesting to see where the episodes are downloaded. I forgot to mention this in the new counselor orientation, but all bar counselors are automatically subscribed to our electronic quarterly newsletter called Sidebar. So for the new counselors, welcome, and you'll be automatically getting that newsletter in your email box every quarter. And the name of the podcast is also called Sidebar. And so we've launched the podcast under the same name. I'm going to close my report by playing you the trailer. The podcast is really excellent, so please subscribe and put the word out to lawyers in your district. The whole point is the more we can get in front of lawyers and reduce the fears of stigma, that they understand that their friends are calling us, everyone's calling us, getting help for different things. We will increase our effectiveness and it will help the profession exponentially. So I'm going to close with the trailer and ask Peter to do a screen share and share the trailer with you.
Never let them see you sweat. Lawyers always need to be on top of their game, or at least appear to be. It can be really, really hard to admit when we aren't, when we're having problems of any kind, and even harder to reach out and ask for help. Discussions about mental health still raise fears of stigma, especially in the legal profession.
Welcome to Sidebar, brought to you by North Carolina's Lawyer Assistance Program, where lawyers help lawyers by sharing their experience, strength, and hope as they delve into their personal journeys of recovery.
When lawyers feel anxious, depressed, or overwhelmed, they think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I hack it? What they don't realize is they're having a totally normal reaction to an abnormal situation. The practice of law creates a prolonged abnormal situation right from the forced curve get-go. It can take a heavy toll on our mental and emotional well-being.
We'll initiate and guide the conversation with lawyers and judges who will share stories, insights, lessons, and tools discovered along the way, with the intention of relieving the stress and stigma of talking about how life and the practice of law have affected them, both personally and professionally.
It's a super demanding profession. It's understandable that we forget we're human beings first and lawyers second. Connecting with our shared humanity helps sustain us mentally and emotionally through it all. We realize we are not alone.
Join us for Sidebar. Tune in for the conversations, community, and camaraderie. Stay for the shared hope and humanity you discover. Sidebar, Lawyers Helping Lawyers. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also contact NC Lap directly and subscribe to our newsletter by visiting www.nclap.org. That's www.nclap.org. Remember, at Sidebar, you are not alone. In fact, you are in quite good company.
Thanks, Peter. So we already have about 11 episodes up. They include everything from anxiety to compassion fatigue to the parent of an alcoholic to all kinds of stuff. So we're also hoping to quell the misperception that we only help with drinking and drug problems. We help with all kinds of problems. So that's my report, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Are there any questions of Robin? I think we can all agree that Robin has taken us into another stratosphere with all the work that she's done. And I think the key to lawyer wellness is getting the message out to lawyers that there is some help out there. So thank you for your report, and thank you for all you do. And please let your staff know that we appreciate everything they do also. The next report is from our general counsel. Catherine Jean will provide us a comprehensive review of the litigation report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I have been asked by Darren to read the litigation report into the record, but he's been overruled by the majority. So instead, I will say that you have in your materials the quarterly and annual reports of the Office of Counsel. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions of that comprehensive litigation report that we just received? All right. Thank your staff. Thank you for all the work you guys do. Let your staff know how much we appreciate all the work, Catherine Jean.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes. I'd like to call upon our Assistant Executive Director, Peter Bolak, who is our legislative liaison. I've asked Alice to include him on all of the Bar Council agendas for this year, because we have collapsed the legislative committee, and Peter is still our liaison over there, so he's going to report any important information that may need to come to our attention. Peter?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a very short report for you today. There was one item affecting the North Carolina State Bar in the budget and budget technical corrections bills. It was a small one-word change to the statute relating to the rule approval process through the Supreme Court that changes the word from the Chief Justice. The court may decline to have so entered upon its minutes any amendments or rules that are inconsistent with the article. But it's now the court shall decline, and that is again in the Chief Justice's opinion if they're inconsistent with Chapter 84. This was not something the State Bar was involved in. This amendment, we saw it in the technical corrections bill. But it does not change the interpretation that we've historically had, that it has always been the Chief Justice's opinion or authority to refuse to publish rule amendments that the Chief Justice considered outside of the bounds of Chapter 84. So we don't think this will have any real procedural change in the process. The dues bill continues to sit in the Senate Rules Committee, and it is still eligible for consideration in the next coming short session. So we will be working on that process, engaging with legislators and staff during the downtime, and it giving you some guidance to be able to contact your local legislators and some talking points for reaching out to them. There was, again, a bill that tried to, early this past session, to try to align the judicial districts with the prosecutorial district numbers. This is a cause of confusion for lawyers and the public in North Carolina, and we're still trying to come up with a solution so those numbers can all be aligned and everyone will have some clear understanding of which district they reside in. Finally, in April, you will, hopefully we will be in person, and we will be providing you with a new batch of note cards to write some messages to your legislators, and so we'll give you some guidance on how to write that, and hopefully write that with handwriting that we can all read. That's my report from the Legislative Liaison. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll now begin with the committee reports, and we're going to start with the Executive Committee. At this point in time, we want to move for the approval of the minutes of the council meeting from October 7th, October 8th of 2021, and also October the 6th of 2021, which I believe was the election. They are posted in share file, so you should have had an opportunity to review those. First, do I have a motion to adopt and accept those minutes of October the 8th and October the 6th of 2021 of the council meetings?
So moved, Mr. President.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any amendments, questions, corrections that we need to make? All right, if not, I would call a vote. Peter, please.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. Thank you. We'll now move to the financial report, and I would call upon Marcy Armstrong, President-elect.
Good morning, everyone. Start with a presentation that the Finance and Audit Committee had from the Mecklenburg County Bar. We had with us Lee Campbell, who's the Executive Director, and Fred DeVore, who is the President of the Mecklenburg County Bar. The Unified Mecklenburg County Bar is considering bifurcation into a voluntary county bar and a mandatory judicial district bar. And as part of this process, it proposed an allocation of its cash reserves between the voluntary bar and the mandatory bar. And we heard from different counselors from Mecklenburg County as well. and the executive committee approved the proposed allocation. And this is not an action item, it's just for your information only, as I understand it. So the next item is the consideration of the fourth quarter financial statements, which are posted on SharePoint. Upon recommendation of the Finance and Audit Committee, the Executive Committee moves the council to approve the fourth quarter financial statements.
All right, that comes as a recommendation from the Finance and Audit. Are there any questions with regards to the financial statements? All right, we would call for a vote. Peter, if you would post.
Motion carries.
All right, and Marcy gave us that information about the Mecklenburg Bar Association for purposes of just informational purposes and not for any action on it. So, all right, Marcy, if you will go forward with the budget, please.
Okay, yes, the next item on the agenda is the proposed state bar budget for 2022. This budget is also on SharePoint. And upon recommendation of the Finance and Audit Committee, the Executive Committee moves the council to approve the 2022 state bar budget.
Okay, those were also posted in the materials. I hope you had an opportunity to look at them. If you have a question about the budget, Alice is here to answer that. I think she probably would be the best one to answer it. She's the most knowledgeable of it. Are there any questions about the budget? That being a recommendation from the Finance and Audit, I would seek a vote on it, please. Peter.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Marcy.
Okay, the next item are the proposed budgets for several of our boards and commissions, and these budgets are also posted on SharePoint, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at those. And upon recommendation of the Finance and Audit Committee, the Executive Committee moves the council to approve the budgets for the Client Security Fund Board of Trustees, Board of Legal Specialization, Board of Continuing Legal Education, Lawyer Assistance Program Board, IOLTA Board of Trustees, and Board of Paralegal Certification.
All right. That comes as a request from the Finance and Audit Committee, so it doesn't need a second. Does anybody have any questions about any of those? Again, those were posted in SharePoint. And I would tell you, along with Alice taking a look and the officers taking a look, we had our finance officer, Ajaya, who took a look at it, and she has confirmed, and we have confidence in her with the officers do, that she finds them in order. So if no questions or concerns about those, I would call those to a vote to adopt those, please.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Marcy.
All right, the final item on the Finance and Audit Committee agenda was the proposed amendment to State Bar Personnel Policy. The proposed amendment impacts employee benefits and must be approved by the council. The Finance and Audit Committee recommended to the Executive Committee that the personnel policies that reduce the number of unused vacation days for which an employee receives compensation upon termination, resignation, or retirement from the state bar be at 105 hours maximum. So upon recommendation of the Finance and Audit Committee, the Executive Committee moves to approve this amendment to the state bar personnel policies.
This is to the personnel policies. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about that? As a recommendation from the Finance and Audit, it doesn't need a second. So if there are no questions, I'd call upon a vote.
That motion carries.
Thank you. And Marcy, if you carry on with the Appointments Committee, please.
Okay, thank you. There were several items on the agenda for the Appointments Advisory Committee. The first was appointments that we needed to make to the Lawyers Assistance Program. Upon recommendation of the Appointments Advisory Committee, the Executive Committee moves for the reappointment of Michael E. McGuire, he's the clinician member, and to appoint Warren Savage, State Bar Counselor, and Anthony Flanagan, a lap volunteer, to the Lawyers Assistance Program Board. And that's our recommendation.
And I think Warren is noting his exception or recusal to that.
Yes, I'd like to recuse from this vote.
He doesn't want the pressure of having to vote for himself, so. All right, so that's a recommendation from the Appointments Advisory Board. Are there any questions or concerns? If not, we will give you the poll, so you can vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations, Warren, you won. So
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be a member of that great organization.
all right. Marcy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So the next item was the advisory board, Appointments Advisory Board considered was the appointment of the chair and vice chair for LAP. And upon recommendation of the Appointments Advisory Committee, the Executive Committee moves for the appointment of Ted Edwards as chair and Crawford Cleveland, a LAP volunteer, as the vice chair of the Lawyers Assistance Program Board.
Okay. And Ted gets, even though Ted's no longer a counselor, he had 1 year remaining as chair. And so he's permitted by rule to remain 1 more year as the chair, even though he's not a counselor anymore. So does anybody have any questions or concerns about that? If not, we'll launch the poll.
That motion carries.
Hey, Marcy.
All right, the next item was appointment to the two appointments to the North Carolina State Bar Foundation Board, and that those members are required to be past presidents of the North Carolina State Bar. Upon recommendation of the Appointments Advisory Committee, the Executive Committee moves that Mark Merritt and John Silverstein be appointed to the North Carolina State Bar Foundation Board, which is, I believe, a 4-year term.
All right. It's a recommendation coming out of the Executive Committee. Does anybody have any questions? All right, if you'll launch the poll, Peter.
That motion carries.
Thank you. All right, Marcy.
Last item on the Appointments Advisory Committee agenda was we needed to appoint a board member for the Paralegal Certification Board to replace Russell Neighbors. He's a former state bar counselor. He has resigned and he has 2 years remaining on his term, which would expire in October of 2023. And then the lawyer appointed to replace him will complete his term and thereafter will be eligible to serve 2 3-year terms. Upon recommendation of the Appointments Advisory Committee, the Executive Committee moves that Daryl Davidson be appointed.
And Daryl, we'll note your recusal if you're on here. I haven't seen you in the Brady Bunch boxes yet, but
He's on. He's
okay.
His audio and video are off, but he's in the meeting.
Okay, so we'll note his recusal. And if there aren't any questions, we'll launch the poll for that.
That motion carries.
All right. Thank you, Marcy, for the work for those 2 committees.
You're welcome.
The next matter that we need to take up are proposed amendments to certain documents within the state bar. And I'm going to just go over those really quick and At the end, if we can take them in a group, then that would be great. If you want to pull one before we consider them, then that's fine also. I would tell you that this is for just publication, so this isn't an adoption issue at this point in time. The first one is a proposed amendment to the rulemaking procedures, which is Rule .1403, which is action by the council in review of the North Carolina Supreme Court. This proposed amendment increases the time frame within which a rule or rule amendments adopted by the council must be transmitted to the Supreme Court in its review. We noted that during one of the most recent transmittals of the rules. We were submitting rules to the Supreme Court just once a year, and that was sort of in violation of the rules that we have, and so we're making an edit to that. The other one is our proposed amendments to the Board of Law Examiner rules governing admission of practice of law. They are Rule .0501 and .0504, which are requirements for general applicants and requirements for transfer applicants. This amendment eliminates the North Carolina state-specific component requirement for the general and uniform bar examination for transfer applicants. We are also considering proposed amendments to the Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 1.06, the confidentiality of information, which is the proposed amendment adds a sentence to the comment of Rule 1.06, clarifying the information acquired during a professional relationship with a client does not encompass information acquired through legal research. We also are considering an amendment to Rule 1.09, duties to former clients. The proposed amendment clarifies when a lawyer who has formally represented a client may use or reveal information relating to the former representation. Those two rule amendments came out of the Ethics Committee as a result of a FEO that they are considering and have been debated thoroughly in the Ethics Committee. And again, these are for publication, so these are not for adoption at this point. And then finally, a proposed amendment to the rule of petitions for inactive status. This comes out of the Administrative Committee, Rule .0901 to transfer to inactive status. This amendment will give the Secretary of the State Bar, who is Alice Mine, the discretion to transfer an active member to inactive status upon the completion of a petition to transfer to inactive status in the same manner that the Secretary has discretion to reinstate inactive members. So I would ask, are any of these rules, amendments, or other amendments matters that you would like to discuss? Or may we take them all in one bunch and ask for acceptance to them? Anybody want to pull any of those for discussion? All right, I would ask for a motion to publish these 5 rule amendments at this time.
So moved, Mr. President.
All right, second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion about them? I would ask at this point in time that you post a poll.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking up that all in one bunch. The next matter is the proposed amendments that have, or a proposed amendment that has been published. There was one negative comment, or one comment that was made. I don't think you can clarify it as negative. I'll let Alice or Peter speak to that, or I mean, Brian. This is a proposed amendment to the Rules of Professional Conduct 1.01. This amendment to the rule adds a new comment, number 9, which states that the awareness of implicit bias and cultural differences enhances a lawyer's competency. That's in the materials. That again has been debated a number of times. It has been published and only one comment has been received. And Brian, could you give us the essence, or Alice, give us the essence of the comment?
Sure. You're talking about the feedback that we received, or the comment that's on the table for?
No, just the feedback that we have, the one person that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the comment that we received essentially raised some concerns about the terms, implicit bias, and just raised some questions about the application of the rule. The concerns that were raised really were things that were previously discussed and debated by the subcommittee that was appointed to study this, as well as the ethics committee. David Allen is chairing that subcommittee, and of course, Evan Rawls is the chair of the ethics committee. And I would invite them to offer their perspective on any sort of considerations regarding that comment at this time.
I would just say again, those concerns had already been debated within the subcommittee and then debated within the ethics committee. So,
that's right. Well, and I guess if I would add that the subcommittee and the ethics committee did not feel that the comment dissuaded them from moving forward with the proposed language.
All right. So, David or Evan, do y'all want to capture any more on that?
No, Mr. President, that was Brian said it properly. Nothing. The comments were valid. Ones that have been raised previously. It was just there was nothing new in the comment we received from prior counselor Ed Henson from Charlotte. It was ground we had already plowed, or the subcommittee had already considered. So we appreciated Ed's letter and considered it, and continued along with the recommendation.
Yes, and I'll just add that the original proposed modifications went out for comment. We did receive comments, and then made some modifications to the comment 9 on Rule 1.1 and sent it out again, and only received the one comment that really was not accurately on point with what we had changed. So we urge everybody to vote for adoption.
All right, and I would point out that this is for the adoption, and it would be transmitted to the Chief Justice and to the Supreme Court in due course. So are there any other questions, suggestions, comments about this rule? All right, if none, I would ask Peter to launch the poll, please.
That motion carries.
All right, thank you. Alice will get the package up and get it off to the Chief Justice before long. All right, moving right along, that is the end of the executive committee report. I would ask and recognize Rich Costanza for the administrative report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody. The administrative committee met January 18th, and during the meeting, we considered 188 petitions of lawyers that were seeking transfer to inactive status. Those petitions were granted. Yesterday evening, one of the attorneys, Mr. Robert Adams, upon some reflection, decided to withdraw his petition for inactive status. So that petition has been withdrawn. So 187 lawyers were transferred to inactive status. 25 were granted that status upon satisfying certain requirements. 2 were granted inactive status nunc pro tunc. 12 lawyers were reinstated from inactive status. 1 was granted reinstatement upon completing certain requirements before our April 2022 meeting. 1 request to complete CLE requirements in lieu of the bar exam requirement for reinstatement after 7 years of inactive status was denied. 7 lawyers were granted reinstatement from suspended status, 1 of which the petition was granted upon completion of certain requirements by our April 2022 meeting. 2 out-of-state lawyers were granted permission to practice on a pro bono basis under supervision of a legal services attorney. 54 lawyers will be issued suspension orders for failure to comply with either membership or CLE requirements. One lawyer will be issued a notice to show cause for failing to comply with membership requirements. The committee voted to recommend the council adopt 2 rule amendments. One pertains to lawyers that either went inactive or were administratively suspended before March 10th of 2011. For lawyers that either went inactive or were suspended after that date, if they are in inactive or suspended status for longer than 7 years, they had to sit for the bar examination. Lawyers that went inactive or were suspended before that date were grandfathered in. They only had to take 12 hours of CLE credit, up to 84 hours for every year that they were in a suspended or inactive status. Last year, that grandfather clause was eliminated. So we had a class of attorneys that went inactive or were suspended before 2011 that believed they could come back by complying with the CLE requirements that are no longer able to do that. Now, the committee voted to give lawyers in that category a hard cutoff date of October 14th of 2022, at which time they, between now and then, they can petition for reinstatement and still get the benefit of being reinstated based on taking the CLEs as opposed to applying for and passing the bar examination. And the state bar staff is going to be reaching out to these attorneys to see if they wish to apply for reinstatement during the grace period that the committee voted to recommend. Another proposed rule amendment that the committee voted to recommend, Darren already mentioned, it's allowing lawyers that are seeking an active status to have their applications approved by the secretary if their applications are in order. And that is the report from the administrative committee.
Let me ask, okay, I'm getting a message from Peter, so just hang tight. So the first, what Rich referred to as a rule amendment is not just, it's not really a rule amendment because we don't need to vote on that. That's just going to be a directive to the staff. So there's nothing to vote on that. We've already voted on the other one. And at this point in time, you just want us to, it would be your motion from your committee to adopt your report. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I have Julie, Judge Bell is noting a recusal on that vote. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you, President Jordan. I want to recuse myself on the first page spreadsheet, margin number 4, involving Ms. Watson. I need to recuse myself for that vote. So if we take a group vote, I will not vote in any of it.
Okay. All right. So that's do I have a motion to accept the report of the administrative report?
So moved, Mr. President.
All right. I have a second. Anybody?
Second.
All right. All in favor, would you launch the poll, Peter?
That motion carries.
All right, I'll call upon Andrea Capia to give the report of the authorized practice.
Good morning. Fortunately, everything was relatively quiet in the world of authorized practice this week. The minutes are in the council materials. And as far as the complaints and inquiries that were reviewed by the committee, we had 13 complaints and inquiries that total. The committee issued letters of caution in 7 matters. It referred 2 matters to disciplinary authorities in other jurisdictions. It dismissed 2 matters, took no action on 2 matters, continued 2 matters for further investigation. Staff registered 5 prepaid legal plans during this quarter. The committee also voted to recommend to the council that a notice of show cause why registration should not be revoked be sent to a plan by the name of Complete Legal Plans. And lastly, this is an action item that we will need to take. The committee voted to recommend to the council that the East Carolina University Student Legal Services Plan registration be revoked. So, Mr. President, I believe that we need council to vote on this recommendation.
Okay. The recommendation, do I have a motion that's a recommendation from a committee, so we don't need a second. Does anyone have any comments or questions about that?
For the benefit of the committee, I will let them know that the reason why we're recommending the revocation is that the plan notified the bar that they did not register for renewal because it was no longer operating in North Carolina.
Thank you. All right. Any questions about that before we call a vote? All right, Peter, if you'll launch that.
That motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Anything further, Andrea?
No, the report does not need to be accepted, so we're good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for your work today and this week. Judge Dorothy Harrison Mitchell for the Communications Committee.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. I am happy to report for the Communications Committee. We have the joy of being able to communicate and let you all know, as well as let other folks know all the good things that the State Bar is doing and the council is doing. And so I will give you all a recap from last quarter as well as projection for this quarter. So by way of recap, live streaming, we have been continuing to live stream as we are currently doing as we speak on YouTube. We have 170 subscribers on YouTube. Woohoo! This is where all the likes and everything, all the confetti and everything's supposed to pop out. 170 subscribers. We have our podcast is still up and running. We did one podcast last quarter, which was a recap of our October 2021 meeting. And we are always looking for additional topics and speakers. So if you have topics or have speakers, please let us know. We would like to hear those and get more content for our podcast. Social media or other social media outside of YouTube, we have 1,900 Twitter and Facebook followers. Another opportunity for you all to like, woohoo, 1,900. We also have, and I've made sure to point out, because I know Brian wants to do this, we had a person to log on, I think, from Indonesia. I think I got to remember that correctly. Indonesia. So we have gone global. We are not just in the United States. Oh, and lastly, well, not last, with more communication, we have launched our new database. Peter has done a phenomenal job on that. And it is still a work in progress, but it is already great. It is a database for our members to go on there to check all their pay dues. You can check your CLE compliance. You can apply for it. You'll look for, search for CLE. We will also end up having some things on there where sponsors for CLE can go on there. They'll have a way to get on the site as well. And Peter is working on a video to communicate and get out the message to our different districts and members across the state about our new database. And to let...
Sorry, that was I hit the wrong button. That was...
It's okay. Peter just wanted y'all to know how all this works in the midst of our meeting. So we also, he is working on that video so that people will learn how the database works, see all the different features for it. So that video should be up soon. And he is all open to coming out to your different districts to be able to give presentations on that as well. We also have $40,000 approved to work on our courtroom technology, to upgrade our technology in the courtroom. And so that is what I have for, no, one more thing. We are also working on the template for different counselors to be able to send out the information after our quarterly meetings. So to personalize the information about our quarterly meetings for your different district bar members. That is my report. I appreciate this time, and any ideas anybody has for other ways that we can be effective in our communication, we would love to have it, but we're excited about what we've been doing and looking forward to continuing to do the same and more.
Thank you, Judge Harrison Mitchell. We appreciate that work. Does anybody have any questions of Dorothy? All right, we'll move forward with the ethics report from the gentleman from Mecklenburg, Eben Rawls.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning to everybody. I'm looking out the window. It's not yet snowing in Charlotte, but we expect it soon. We had a great, robust, and productive meeting yesterday, skillfully guided by Brian and Nicole and Suzanne, who always just help us immeasurably. We did miss Counselor Mac McCarley and his love of granular debate. And Mac, you're invited back to Ethics Committee to grind down with us anytime. We had a pretty full agenda. It took us almost 4 hours to get through it. We sent 3 matters back to subcommittee. We've got one FVO that's been published. We're waiting for comments. President Jordan, you covered the rule amendments. We actually had 4 rule amendments. 2 of them you addressed earlier this morning, and we returned 2 back to the subcommittee. We do have several action items for the council that's in your materials. We have 3 formal ethics opinions where the ethics committee recommends adoption. I'll summarize those briefly, and thank you, Brian, for putting them in summary form for me. One is 2021 FEO 3, which is charging fees to separately represented party in residential real estate closings. There's 2021 FEO 4, a lawyer in possession of contraband during representation, and 2021 FEO 6, how to handle a departing lawyer's email account. These were all fairly straightforward. We had some good discussions about how to wordsmith and fine-tune these FEOs, and we think that they're ready for adoption. So we recommend that the council adopt these 3 FEOs as a group. If anybody wants to pull anyone or ask any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
All right. That is, I guess we need to make a motion to adopt those, and then we can talk about whether we pull any of them. So do I have a motion?
That's my motion.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
I don't think you need it, do you?
Out of an abundance of caution.
So moved, Mr. President.
And seconded. Thank you. Does anybody want to pull any of those 3 FEOs and discuss them prior to us voting on them? All right, if not, would you launch a poll? We're calling to question at this point in time the adoption of FEO 21, FEO 3, 4, and 6. You've launched a poll, please.
That motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for the good work, Evan. I'm going to recognize Matt Smith with the grievance committee at this point.
Thank you, Mr. President. The hard work of the Grievance Committee. We handled 261 total items this quarter, and here's the breakdown of those. 201 files were dismissed, 4 files were abated, 4 files were continued to the April meeting. 1 lawyer was referred to the Lawyer Assistance Program. 3 lawyers were referred to Trust Accounting Compliance Program. 4 lawyers received letters of caution. 9 lawyers received letters of warning. 9 lawyers received admonitions. 4 lawyers received reprimands. 2 lawyers received censures, and 12 lawyers were referred to the Disciplinary Hearing Commission. So that is the very hard work of the Grievance Committee this quarter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for that report. It will never get past me the some of the actions that some lawyers do in North Carolina. It's kind of amazing. And if you've never been on the Grievance Committee, you just can't appreciate that. I would call upon Vice President Todd Brown for the Issues Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. The Issues Committee met on January 19th. We took up basically 5 matters. 2 involved updates and 3 involved some action. We first had an update on the distribution of the report on compensation for court-appointed defense counsel. That was a subcommittee report given by Judge Alan Cobb in October. The focus is to look at actions that the State Bar might undertake to support the fair compensation of lawyers who are appointed to represent indigent defendants. Peter gave us a report on the continued distribution of that report to key stakeholders so that we can consider the next steps in that process in terms of taking action and implementing things in that report to the extent appropriate. We then took up the report of the Secured Leave Subcommittee, which was chaired by Gordon Brown. He gave us a great report in October as well. And the focus of that subcommittee was to study the secured leave rules for trial and appellate lawyers. It too is being distributed to key stakeholders with Alice leading that charge. And once we have distributed to the appropriate stakeholders, we will then consider also what are the next steps in that process. We then turn to 2 presentations from 2 subcommittees. First, we heard from Mark Enriquez subcommittee dealing with proposed regulatory changes to various procedures, rules, et cetera, in North Carolina potentially. That subcommittee looked at reports and initiatives from various states on changes to the regulation of the practice of law, basically designed to facilitate innovation and improve access to justice. Mark gave us a great report with 6 recommendations from his subcommittee after many, many months of good work. The Issues Committee concluded that we need to have sufficient time for transparent, robust debate on the recommendations, and then obviously a vote. We didn't believe we had enough time to do that in an hour on Wednesday. So the motion was made and passed that we defer or postpone debate of those presentations or the recommendations, I guess, to the April meeting, and that motion passed. And so we will have the discussion of those recommendations in April. We then turn to the report of the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee. That was a subcommittee appointed by then President Christie to basically look at issues, matters relevant to diversity and inclusion at the state bar level, and to make recommendations to the Issues Committee accordingly. I gave the report. Our subcommittee did some excellent work as well, and we have 9 specific recommendations that we made as well. Similar to the regulatory subcommittee, we decided that we want to make sure that we have sufficient time to debate, discuss, and vote on those recommendations. So a similar motion was passed that we defer or postpone discussion until the April meeting. That motion passed. And so we will be having discussions on both of those subcommittees reports for regulatory change and diversity and inclusion in April. We will look at how we provide sufficient time for those debates, because those are key and important recommendations that have been made, and we want to make sure that we scrutinize them, debate them, and then do what's best for the good work of the State Bar according to its mission. The final matter we took up was a study of whether to appoint a subcommittee to look at quote unquote attorney deserts in North Carolina. And those basically are places where there are too few lawyers who live there and work there, and therefore there are certainly unmet and limited legal needs there. We want to make sure that we look at access to justice and making sure that we study whether or not we should look at attorney deserts in North Carolina. Peter, as he always does in his great ways, pull the data for the district population of our bars, quite frankly, and we found out that out of our 100 counties in North Carolina, 48 counties would qualify as attorney deserts, and those are defined as counties with one lawyer per 1,000 residents, basically. So we talked about that, debated it, and the motion passed that we should appoint a study committee for attorney deserts in North Carolina. President Jordan and others will be looking at the appropriate makeup of that subcommittee and how we move forward. And so that is the report of the Issues Committee, Mr. President.
Thank you, Todd. Are there any questions with regards to those recommendations? I think everybody would agree that we are more effective in person when we discuss things. So I appreciate the work and of the committee and the decision of the committee. If there are no discussions or comments about the Issues Committee, call upon Mike Ramos to talk about the LAMP Committee.
Good morning. LAMP Committee met last week, as Jordan knows, as Darren knows. I don't have any action to report other than that we lost our webmaster last month by Shields. And as most of you remember, that the web page for the LAMP Committee is known nationwide, and we rely on it very heavily. So our main task was to try to find someone who was willing to take up that task. One of our new advisory members, Kristen Coyne from Cumberland County, was willing to do that. And so she is now our new webmaster. We're still in the process of updating our handouts and hopefully have a CLE at the end of this year, provided that this COVID stuff is no longer with us. And I was able to do the New York Times crossword puzzle in about 30 minutes. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mike. We will look to a North Carolina State Bar Award to give you at some point in time in the near future. All right. Are there any questions of Mike about either the LAMP Committee or the New York Times crossword puzzle? All right. If there are not, then we will move forward. I think Warren was about to ask you what is 6 down. So, but anyway, we'll recognize Evan Rawls for the PMBR Cybersecurity Committee for a report.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to start by just sort of giving a quick background for some of those counselors that have come in the last couple of years. This began several years ago as a survey of various jurisdictions on programs that they had instituted to keep lawyers, especially lawyers that in mature practices and maturing practices, current and up to date on changes in the law, because these jurisdictions were noticing an increase in the number of complaints and disciplinary actions with lawyers that were comfortable in their practices and had not kept up with changes in the law. We looked at Illinois, we looked at Colorado, we even went as far as New South Wales and looked at programs that they had set up. And there were two separate kinds of programs that were set up. One was a CLE model, where these bars had set up CLEs for lawyers, mandatory in some and permissive in others, and mandatory in one jurisdiction for lawyers that did not have malpractice insurance. But after closely examining all of these programs and looking at what we have in North Carolina, we decided and concluded that North Carolina is in very good shape. We have a very good, robust CLE, new lawyers. We have CLE requirements that meet some of the issues that were being addressed by these other jurisdictions, except for cybersecurity. So we decided to focus on the single issue of cybersecurity. So what we did, we set up 5 work groups working towards a self-assessment model for lawyers. This is targeted for lawyers that are solo practitioners, small firm lawyers, lawyers in rural jurisdictions, because big firms have an on-staff IT person that pretty much takes care of their cybersecurity and other IT needs. So the first 3 work groups amassed a mountain of information. And so it was a lot to get through. The 4th work group that we set up was comprised of Walter Brock, who's vice chair, and me, and a couple of others, but some subject matter experts, where we distilled, edited, and curated this information down to approximately 31 self-assessment questions with links to help lawyers assess their cybersecurity capabilities and protections. Once that was done, the 5th work group, who had been on the bench for quite some time, made up of Catherine Fry, Warren Savage, and Patty Head, which I've mentioned this before. I call them the lipstick and glitter crew because they were tasked with trying to make this program marketable, entertaining, humorous, engaging, and also safe, because I think we worry that some lawyers feel that if they go through a self-assessment in this case, and they later have some cybersecurity issues, that opens them up to potential lawsuits. But I have to give Catherine and Warren and Patty a lot of credit, because they have just been brilliant in the way they've taken this, this distilled and curated information and decided to reach out to folks at NC State. And we had the director of this NC State marketing program in the executive committee yesterday. And he is working with Catherine and Warren and Patty to put this in a form and in a way that accomplishes all of the needs that I mentioned earlier. So props to the lipstick and glitter crew. The Jake Brodeur is the director's name out there at NC State. He's a wealth of information and gave us some of his ideas. He'll have graduate students working on this program. And we have budgeted $5,000 from the State Bar. Thank you very much, officers, for giving us that money to launch this program. Jake indicated yesterday that he thought he could have a workable product by April for us to look at and comment on and beta test with certain groups of lawyers. So once again, this is not a in-depth dive into the nuances of cybersecurity when we amass this mountain of information, a lot of it is like speaking a foreign language. There's a lot of information that professionals understand, but lawyers don't. So we're targeting, like I say, the small law firms, the rural law firms, the sole practitioners with some real basic, easy to understand and easy to implement information to protect them from cybersecurity issues. The real estate bar has just been ravaged by hacking and cybersecurity issues. Warren is aware of that. He's nodding his head. But there are ways to avoid and prevent these things. And we think we're going to have a very good product when we finish it. We've had a lot of people working on it. And hopefully this year we can get this out and available for folks. So it's been a while since I've informed the council updates, but I'm optimistic that this is going to get done this year.
Thank you, Evan. Been a long process, but hopefully we'll have a product that we'll be happy with. I'm sure. Anybody have any questions of Evan? We expect everybody to do this self-assessment on the Bar Council, right, Evan? All right. I want to recognize the esteemed Mr. Warren Savage, who loves to pay claims for the Distinguished Service Award.
The more I pay, the more my job security remains. Before we move into closed session, I have an issue I'd like to discuss with the full council and get your approval on. I think I gave you a heads up at the last full council meeting that we were going to look again as a committee at our criteria for the Distinguished Service Award, specifically the requirement that a recipient at the time of nomination needed to be alive. We looked back to try to find where that was, and I think that was mainly a matter of custom because we couldn't really find anywhere it was written down in any past things, and it was probably implied in some of the criteria that were there too. But we analyzed that and discussed it for a long time at the committee meeting on Tuesday, and came to a unanimous conclusion that we really felt that the reasons that might have existed at the time the award was created back in 2008 really no longer existed, and that we had been frustrated by a couple of sudden deaths in the fall of last year of people that would have been will be, I hope, in the future, recipients of the Distinguished Service Award, given that we just, they died suddenly and nobody had ever had a chance to or get a nomination together, or at least in one case, it was so sudden and premature, nobody even had thought to start the process. So with that, I discussed with Alice and Peter and Catherine Jean some language that was approved by the committee that I would like to, this is not a rule change, this is a criteria. And I really don't think we're even going to publish it. It just allows the, at least not going to publish it on the website or anything like that, but it allows the committee to have a little more leeway in considering nominations. And I'd like to read this and get the full council's approval of what the Distinguished Service Award committee recommends to the full council. The Distinguished Service Award may be awarded posthumously if the committee receives the nomination within 12 months of the nominee's death. Approval of the nominee is subject to the Office of Counsel's confirmation that the nominee received no public professional discipline during his or her lifetime, and confirmation that there was no investigation pending at the time of the nominee's death, including allegations that, if proven, would have supported imposition of public professional discipline. I'd like to get the
That's a recommendation of a policy change within the DSA. It's not a rule change. So, but I do agree with Warren that we probably need to just kind of wave our wand as the state bar over it and approve it, if everybody is in agreement. So I would take that as a motion from that committee to change that that particular provision in your policy manual, and ask for a second, even though we may not need a second. Could I have a second for Warren's motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion about this? I think this is the right move. I think COVID has put us in a strange place, and we've seen the death of a couple people that are well deserving of it. And I don't think that their untimely death should prohibit their recognition for the good work they've done. So if there's no further discussion, I'd like to call it to vote then.
That motion carries.
I think, as Jay White said, this was a no-brainer for a lot of people. So thank you for your work on that. And Warren, we will entertain a motion that with regards to closed session.
All right. This time I'd like to move that the full council go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A2 to prevent the premature disclosure of an honorary degree, scholarship, prize, or similar award.
All right. There is a motion from Warren with regards to going into closed session to consider the DSA award. Does anybody have any, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Will you put up the poll, please, Peter?
That motion carries.
All right, Peter, we'll go into closed session if you guys can. All right, I guess we're all back in. I think that worked. I hit the button before Peter, I think, to include us all. So are we now streaming?
You're back on. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. The esteemed Mr. Warren Savage, do you have a motion with regards to the Distinguished Service Award?
I do. I have a motion, and I'd like to advise that the Distinguished Service Award Committee is moving with approval of the Executive Committee that the council approve the nominations of candidates A, B, and C, the lawyers discussed in closed session, for the presentation of the John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award, subject to our standard due diligence checks.
All right, that is a motion from the DSA committee. Do I have a second for it?
Second.
John Willerson. Second. All right. And is there any further discussion? If not, launch the poll, please, Peter. Looks like it wins.
Great.
Which carries.
So before I finish up, I'll be very brief. Couple of things. Number one, we are still sort of backed up on trying to get awards presented because of COVID complications. The Suzanne Lever, our staff person, has just been unbelievable in trying to get these done. Darren did his first. I think this was the first virtual award we did earlier this month, right? Of Lisa Costner from Winston-Salem. That went pretty well, but it was virtual and it's just not as special. And a lot of folks are still trying to hold out to that have been awarded their awards that, or not awarded, they know they've gotten the award and they're waiting for the presentation until we can do it in person. With that said, there is an awards presentation coming up on January 28th in Goldsboro at the courthouse for Jeff Hulse, HULSE. You might remember him. If you want to be entertained, talk to him for 5 minutes. You should, if you're interested in going to that, I know that Marcy will be there in person, I think along with Barbara. I think several other folks are planning on going, Judge Cobb and maybe even Judge Rader. So that's going to be a popular one. And it will be in person at 9 a.m. at the Goldsboro Courthouse. And finally, I was encouraged by the fact that these 3 approved candidates were all from small towns. And I encourage you to keep beating the bushes and let's find some folks, the mentors that are out there that really meant a lot to us, either to us in our early years or now to the young folks that are still practicing or just starting practice now. I mean, heck fire, some of us are mentors to those folks, but we know our peers. And let's get out there and find those folks and get them nominated for the Distinguished Service Award. It is, I want to be the chair of the committee that gets the most DSA awards awarded in a calendar year. That would be nice. We started with 3 good ones.
Great job, Warren. Thank you for you and your committee. We appreciate all the work y'all are doing. I would encourage the bar counselors to beat the bushes in your districts and see if you can locate deserving folks and get them to Warren and his committee. Before we close, I do want to recognize and allow him to introduce himself by letting us know where he practices law and what kind of law he does practice. New Zealand, I think I saw that you came on. See there?
He's here. I think he's muted at the moment. I don't know if.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry I came in late also, Darren, but I got COVID and I've been kind of ill for the last couple of days, been fighting it. But I have a general litigation practice with my son, Franklin McKinney. We do civil and criminal litigation, just a general practice, small town practice.
Well,
All right. In Zealand is way out there on the other end of the state from Manio. You've heard of Murphy to Manio, and he is the Murphy. And
well, he is in a place where he can.
We would like to welcome you to the Counsel Zealand. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
I think somebody might need to mute, but I don't. Did Kimberly Moore come back on, Peter?
She was on, but she is now off.
All right. Kimberly was on a while ago. I think she is our new counselor from Raleigh. She's the other new counselor from the 10th Judicial District. So we'll give her an opportunity next time we all get together. I want to clean up another matter. Mike, are you still here, Ramos? Would you please be kind enough to give Marcy an update on the weather? She wants to come to the beach.
It's dropped about 20 degrees in about the last 2 hours. It's very, very cold and it looks like it's sleeting.
Well, she wants to know if the wine shops are open.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
The coastal wine shop, yeah, that's the key. Yeah.
Okay. All
well,
right.
you know,
So,
they sell wine at the Family Dollar too, right down the street.
yeah, sometimes that's good if you don't have one of those cork screw things to pull the cork out. All right, so Marcy wants to make, after I've now embarrassed Marcy and made her feel uncomfortable, she wants to make an announcement about the appointments committee.
It takes a lot more than that to make me uncomfortable and embarrass me. But anyway, I forgot.
I'm glad to know that.
I forgot to mention that with the Appointments Advisory Committee, we encourage the counselors to send nominations for any openings ahead of time to, if you would just keep an eye out on the website for upcoming vacancies. I know that we are going to have, I think, at least one vacancy on the DHC in April. So anyway, I just encourage the counselors to please nominate. Please feel free to nominate anybody that you think would like to serve in any of these different capacities. And thank you.
Yeah, we
be
need
safe.
those. Yeah, we need those as when prior to the meeting, because we have a method within the Appointments Advisory Committee now where we try to have them vetted before we come into the committee so we can talk about them and vote on them. So any of those that you can, that would be appreciative. I do want to just take a minute to let everybody know how much I appreciate your hard work. There was something that was been said a couple of times over the week, and that is I'm here because Darren asked me, and he's quite persuasive in encouraging me to be on the committee. And I do really appreciate everybody who's responded when I came to you and said, will you do this? Will you do that? That's a big help for someone who has to make those decisions. It makes it so much easier. It'll make Marcy's job easier. It'll make Todd's job easier as he comes, and it'll make all the other presidents who come along their job easier. So I really appreciate everybody, jumping on board and working hard. And I really appreciate the staff, Alice, Peter, Brian, Catherine, Jean, and your staffs. Y'all have done a exemplary job this week. I think we've run a really good meeting, and all I can say is I look forward to the big party in April when we can celebrate and see each other. Okay. So without further ado, I'm seeing Evan Rawls is making a motion to adjourn, and I saw Kevin Williams second that motion. And so I would just, you can vote by hitting leave this meeting, and we will see you all in April.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Be safe.
See you, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.